Finding yourself lost in finding ways to be found, getting into your mind, lost in
Update it, right? Why not?
Yeah. Just blow another $3,000 while you're at it for
Hey,
a
listen,
computer.
it's just $3,000, man.
Only
There's $8,000
$3,000.
Apple products, so we're doing you a favor. Give us your old device.
God,
We'll take care of it for you. And here's a new one. Gotta love Apple. Man,
you
it's great to
really
be here with you
do.
today. I'm psyched to be here with you.
Ah,
Been
I
looking
mean,
forward to this.
it's kind of crazy because I've been doing podcasting for about 2 years, and I never would expect to think I would have somebody like you on my podcast. Like,
Why do you
I'm
say
not,
that?
because like you're the type of person that I can't even imagine anybody having time to get an interview with. Like you're just all over the place. Like you're doing this project and then you're doing that project and then you're working with this and you're collaborating with that and you're over there and you're like, I've never seen a podcaster like you before. You're everywhere. You're like the Superman of podcasters.
I've never had anyone say that. I'll take it. But I mean, honestly, I've been listening to your show for a while now, so it's
Oh,
kind
aren't
of
you
cool.
serious?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Well, ever since I don't know when we first met at this point. I'm not great at the time, but it all gets a little blurry. But whenever that was, I loaded up a few episodes, and like even today, I listened to an episode that you did with Jody Kringle. And
Mm-hmm.
first off, her voice is incredible, but like I just thoroughly
Fantastic.
enjoyed the conversation, like because you both are in different ways, but like creatives and stuff like that. And it was just like really cool. So anyway, it's cool to be here. I try not to make myself seem like inaccessible, but I guess I get it sometimes. But
No, well, creative mind comes creative responsibility. For every single person, it's going to be different. I think it's important to keep yourself busy. And if you're creating something that's successful for you and you're benefiting tremendously from it and you're having fun and you're collaborative and having a great experience with it, keep busy. If you need to be
yeah,
busier, be busier.
well said.
So I think one of the things that I've had to come to realization, especially as a podcaster up until this point, is your expectations are so low. Like my expectations now are so low because when I first started coming in there, I had crazy ambitions. I had like insane to the point now, I just like having fun. I just like talking with people and hearing new conversations. Whenever I have a guest that asks me, like, what are we talking about? I don't know.
My favorite. I've heard it a few times. I just heard a guest the other day. He's like, "Are we recording?" And you're like, "Yeah, we've been recording." He's like, "Oh," I was like, I just laughed because I've heard enough of your show. People are like, "Wait, what are we doing here?" I think that's what I actually like about your show. For me, I'm a creative as well. It's different. Like I'm a software podcasting guy. I don't really know, but it's
We're going to go
freeing to
through that
hear.
in a little bit.
Yeah, I figured, but it's freeing to like listen to something where I feel like, okay, this is like it just allows me to kind of like listen and not be like, okay, do I need a notepad? Do I need to go watch this? Like, what do I need to be doing? Right? I can just listen and enjoy and like kind of let my mind go with it. And I think that that's kind of the beauty of what you've created. But I love that you said you're just having fun with it, man. Like, because Jordan Harbinger is a really big podcaster. I don't know. I mean, one of the biggest shows, and he says the key to like making it work is just having a good time and letting the results be what they are. And obviously there's some work thing going to, but in general, I love the fact that here you are years in, still consistently making content that you enjoy. And I think it just gets better and better. I mean, I don't mean to preach here, but man, I really respect that.
Well, it's all about attitude because, I'm not going to lie. I was very heavily inspired by Joe Rogan. But what I took was from you was when I started looking at PodMatch and when we started rebranding about a year ago, is really finding a middle ground, is realizing that, yes, a podcast needs to be unique. Yes, it's important to have an audience, but at the same time, why are you doing this? What is your goal? Like, what is your attribution? Like, what is your attitude? Like, what is your 6-month plan? What is your 1-month plan? Like, what is your plan for next week? These are all things that come into it. Yes, podcasting is fun, but there's still that aspect of like, it's still a project. You know what I mean? So there is that attitude and aspect to it as well. But I don't know. That's just how I feel personally.
I agree with that. We were looking at some of the data, me and some of the team, like of podcasting, like failure rates and stuff like that. And right now, as we're recording this, to make it to the 1 year mark of your show, you have an 11% chance. So 89% of people stop. And typically, like, it's just way too much work. And they got into it realizing how much work it was going to be, but they forgot the key element of, is it fun? Do you enjoy it? And if you look at like national, I'll just go with the United States, look at national averages of like a success or failure of an entrepreneur in their first year. You're 4 times more likely to make as an entrepreneur. So when people are like, well, I'm doing it to make money and to get famous, I'm like, you'd be better off like starting a business and trying it that route than starting a podcast, just given the failure rate. But yeah, I think the key ingredient people miss is you actually have to enjoy the medium that you're going to work in. If you don't, I mean, what is the point of any of this if you don't enjoy it, right?
I know. And it's strange because now more than ever, I feel podcasts are so important. Specifically when it comes to journalism. I mean, to be honest, like the only place really to get real news that's not bullshit anymore is podcast.
I agree.
And I think the other thing that I've run into besides the whole no bullshit is getting guests. For Christ's sakes, I mean, before I like started using PodMatch, it hurts thinking about. So the way I used to get guests was like through Matchmaker FM.
Yeah, familiar.
And Facebook and Instagram. I had no shows, delays, calls over calls, emails back and forth. Dude, like it would sometimes take me like 2 months, 3 months, sometimes even 4 months just to get one guy on. And that is also something that like I've had to take into account. Oh my God, I've had a lot more guests than I've ever had. I'm like, all right, because I've been using PodMatch.
I mean, I love hearing that. That you just totally made my day with that. I'm going to pull this clip out of this podcast. I'm going to frame that somehow. Hey, for anyone listening who doesn't know what PodMatch is, I'll just quickly explain. It's a service that connects podcast guests and hosts together for interviews. For lack of a better term, I think you've even said this before, Dave. Like it's like a dating app, but again, it doesn't connect you for dates. It connects you for podcast interviews. So it's just trying to simplify the podcast process of interviewing on both sides of the mic as easily as possible.
Well, it also helps podcasts that are, for example, artists such as myself, like you get frustrated. You're like, why am I not seeing any results? And why is nobody reaching out to me? I think you kind of figured that out within the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, thank you. That was low key. That was the real target there. So yeah, absolutely. It was like, I mean, man, here's the thing. Podcasting, again, you should love it if you're going to do it. But out of any form of like content creation medium, it's probably, I shouldn't say, but the only one, but probably close to the only one where you don't have any direct contact with the people listening. Like if they want, they can never reach out to you and you never know. Right. And so that makes it a bit of a lonely space. And I was like, there's got to be a way to at least get some guests and hosts interacting. Right. There's got to be some form of interaction so you don't just feel like you're in a room alone. Now, I happen to know that you're an introvert, so maybe you like that, but I'm like a major extrovert, and I hate that.
Well, I'm a mixture of an introvert and an extrovert, so
Are you? Okay.
marijuana makes me an extrovert.
Sweet.
I mean, like, you see me bubbly and happy, it's because I'm stoned. If I'm sitting in a corner drinking a coffee, reading, like, Edgar Allan Poe, it usually means really early in the morning, and I haven't smoked yet.
Right. That's funny, man. I like that. That means bring Dave something, right? Just something to ease it a little bit, right?
Do you know what this have you ever had guests on your show where before you start, it is the most uncomfortable 3 minutes of your life? Like there's no eye contact. There's no like verbal conversation. You try and just nothing's happening. And then the second you start recording, oh yes, my name is this, da-da-da. I do this type of business, da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm just like, for the first 10 minutes, I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Like we started and like, I have like, you want to do this? You want to start? Are you ready? What is that?
I don't know. I had one person. I mean, we could tell all these stories. I've got.
Oh my God, there's so many.
I got one where this person came on, and I swear she was angry at me. We had never met before. She was like really busy, didn't have time for a pre-call, but she had her arms crossed the whole time. I'm like, hey, how are you? Fine. I'm like, oh, okay. You feel like you're ready to go? Any questions? No. Okay. And I was like, hey, so and so, I'll leave her nameless. Hey, so and so, welcome to the show. And she's like, Alex, it's so great to be here. I'm like, what the? I was like, what just happened? It was like you have some sort of multiple
Oh
personality
my
thing going on
god.
here. It was terrifying. I'll be real. And yet, that's the only type of thing that really freaks me out is when you get in that green room before you hit record with a guest, and you're like, what is
Mhm.
about to happen? Or another thing, I respect this about you. You just start recording and go for it, and I love that. But I've met hosts as well that are like, woo, so excited. We're going to be recording together today. It's going to be so much fun, man. I can't wait. You ready to get going? I'm like, yeah. And they hit record. They're like, hey, everyone, welcome back to the show. Alex Sanfilippo is joining us here today. I'm like, what happened to the fun guy? Like, where'd the fun guy go?
God, yeah, like you literally sit there in the awkward twilight moment of I by the way, that was the one thing that I loved about the Joe Rogan podcast, and that's kind of the thing that I've tried to keep with is there's no intro, bro.
I respect that so much. It's just better that way. Just get in. Here's the thing: you got to think about not just the first time listener to your show, but also the repeat listener. Like some podcasts have like a 4-minute intro. I'm like, listen, after the second time, I'm good. Like I don't want to hear that 4 minutes again. I just want to get straight to what I showed up for. I think that you do a really good job with that, but I don't know if that everyone can actually pull that off. There's a bit of an art to it, and you
Yeah.
you jump straight into keeping it interesting. I don't know as it I would suggest everyone try to do that. You do it in a great way where for me, instantly I find it captivating. I want to continue listening. So kudos to you, but I don't know if it's for everybody, but I like the approach you took.
No, but there also is a way of doing intros that are really well made. Like for example, one of them that I really like is a true crime podcast. Shout out to them, which is the Book of the Dead.
I haven't heard that.
And their intro is like really short and sweet. And then once they start the episode, they start giving you the case. So you start to understand the story piece by piece, which I really love. Because sometimes when let's be honest, like there's a lot of great true crime podcasts, but for the first 15 minutes, it's just all up and like getting you revved up. Like, just tell me what's going on. And the knife was stuck in the corner. And they came and they just tell me, like, what the hell, bro? It's crazy. So that's what I love about the Book of the Dead. That's a great example of a podcast that I can give of where like in 30 to 40 minutes, you get a sad story, but a true crime case that should have been explored more in detail and A to Z. Plain and simple.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about my podcast for a second because when I
Oh,
redid
sure.
my podcast is, here I am pitching stuff. Hey, I hope you're enjoying Lost in the Groove. Let's talk about Alex's show. No, the
Yeah.
point, my show is 4 podcast guests and hosts. Again, given the nature of what I do in software, like it made sense to have a show about that. But
Mm-hmm.
when I talk to podcasters, one of the most common things I heard is I don't have time to listen to podcasts. And I was like, that's really weird. Like I heard that everywhere. So I just made my show pretty short. The average episode is probably 15 minutes and we throw a couple longer episodes in there. But my intro is 14 and a half seconds long. And we did it on purpose because most of the skip buttons are 15 seconds. And so everyone who listens, I'm like, hey, if you've listened before, just click that button one time and you get straight into the beginning of it. So it's 14 seconds long. And I think that
Oh,
that's worked really
nice.
well. Again, if you're not going to listen to
Yeah.
podcasts, I don't want to scare you off by doing a 2-minute intro. If you're already like, I don't listen to podcasts because I'm a podcaster, right? So, which I did find interesting, by the way, that podcasters don't listen to podcasts. A lot of them. I found that very strange.
Well, I don't listen to many podcasts. I actually, all right, I'm going to admit it. For the past 4.5 years, I have only listened to the Joe Rogan podcast.
That counts as like 10. So you're okay. You're all right.
But yeah, that's pretty much what I listen to right now. I'm taking a little break because he interviewed Dwayne Rock Johnson, so I need a
Can't
breather.
get into it. Can't get into it.
No, honey. Like I've had Native Americans on this podcast, let alone like people from indigenous cultures. Like, no, I'm not. I can't. I just feel like it's just too disrespectful. But what I find really interesting is conflict of interest. Because when you start describing a podcast, it's like, oh, so what do you do? Like, oh, we're a comedy show, but you're not a comedy show. Well, we cover like software, but like what type of software? And that is something that I sure is a struggle for me, and probably struggle for others. It's just figuring out where you fit in the category of many categories. You know,
Yeah.
you've answered the question of what do podcasters really don't listen to other podcasters? Okay, so let's make the episode shorter. But what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, it's yeah, I decided to test it to see if it would work because I personally I like a lot like not I don't necessarily want to listen to like a 5-hour podcast. I know there's some shows that actually like aim for that, which is kind of nuts. But so I'm not like necessarily into that, but like if I'm gonna take an let's just say an hour break to go run errands or work out or something like that, like I like a podcast that lasts that long because that's what I have. And so like I used to like my podcast to be more like a bit longer, but I decided to try this and really I get great feedback now. And so even though like maybe it's not I don't know. I shouldn't say not exactly what I really do enjoy it. I've grown to really like what I have, and I think it's super fun. It's just not what I.
Mhm.
If you would have told me 2 years ago, hey, I think you're gonna end up doing like a really short form podcast, I've been like, nah, that doesn't sound like me. But I've grown to like it, and again, the audience I'm serving, they like it. But I think that's the beauty of podcasting. There really is no right or wrong way to do it, and there's exceptions to every rule. I mean, let's face it. We're talking about Joe Rogan on paper, Joe Rogan does not follow what a single podcasting coach would say. And I'm not a podcasting coach, but like any of the pros or the gurus out there would be like, don't do these 10 things. I'm like, well, Joe Rogan does all 10 of those, right? It's just proof that there's like exceptions to every rule. And there's no necessarily right or wrong way because the
No,
beauty of it
yeah.
is it's not for everybody, right? You're gonna reach an audience that only you can reach based on how you decide to do your show.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's all about, self development and individuality. The thing that I feel is important is just being open and honest, understanding of what you want to put out and what you want to make. I mean, for example, you've kind of laid it out for yourself. You are very well scripted in software and technology. You found yourself this podcast and you developed it down to this platform based to your own individuality and your own specific tastes and needs. There is that understanding of even with industry and within technology, one rule can't apply to every single person. Agreed?
Yes, agreed. Yeah. I
Do you
mean,
want to
for
elaborate on that?
yeah, I want to make sure you didn't have more. I was like, it was pretty deep stuff. Yeah, I noticed that almost immediately. Like when we launched PodMatch, like it wasn't I wouldn't say immediately, but pretty quick I realized this isn't for everybody. Some people legit like emailing, hating like the model, all the things about it. And at first, as an early stage founder, I mean, I started and launched it in 2020, so I'm years in now. But like especially the first couple years, I was like really insecure. And I was like, honest, I'll be real. I was terrified to open my emails every morning. Like I'd feel uneasy because I'm like, what am I going to hear? And I had to come to terms with the fact is that there's no one size fits all, even in this type of thing. Like I'm very thankful to hear your kind words today, and you're one of the people that it works good for, right? And other people are just like, I don't like this, or this, and I think that you're stupid, right? Like, and people are very brave online when they're behind a keyboard.
Expressive. Oh, yeah,
Yes,
very
expressive.
expressive.
That's a much nicer way to say it. Anyway, but that really bothered me, and I had to finally come to terms with the fact, like, it took some coaching and counseling even to, like, realize, okay, I'm just not for everybody, and I just have to somehow learn to let that roll off my sleeves, and my natural personality, that doesn't just happen for me, like, I had to make a real conscious effort and get the right people in my corner to help me do that, but realizing that there's no one size fits all, even in software, there's options for everything, right? That that took some serious time, and for me, like, it's probably weird for people to hear, like, "Oh, a software guy with, like, a heart." I think all of us probably have a heart, right? And so that was, like, I mean, I was putting my all into it. So I still am. And so it was really tough to hear. And I'm learning more and more. And it still kind of hurts a little bit here and there. But like, I'm just learning to like, I'm just not for that person. That's okay. They'll find something else that helps and serves them. I always say, just respond in love. Like, be nice anyway, even if people are being rude to me.
Yeah. I think it's one second. I think it's also I think it's also a message because I recently lost my corporate job and I currently, am working somewhere else. And the thing that I've had to come to terms is we as a society have relied so heavily on corporate so heavily on this industrial technological boom that any person that wants to use software or technology or has a love or a passion for it is seen as a demon of the other side. Is not as somebody that's caring, but somebody that's out there to make profit and promise you the world and give you nothing. But like I said, and I feel personally, you don't strike me as somebody that would be like, corporate greed. Haha, I'm gonna screw all you people. No, you seem like, with all the emails and the messages and like the like clear honesty and like straightforwardness. Again, there's many other companies and many other businesses in this country that are doing the same things. But again, you didn't have to. Like, this is so crazy to even think about it. You don't have to care. You don't. You're choosing to. Sorry, choosing to do so. Ugh.
Well said. Well said.
Indeed.
Yeah, no, you're right.
sir.
I mean, you're absolutely right, and that's. I think one of the reasons people reach out and like are like, so my wife handles the support. And one of the reasons people were like their initial outreach can be like so rude is because they're used to be treating a certain way from people who don't care. And so like when you're like a quote unquote like us purpose driven founders that actually like we're podcasters ourselves and we love podcasting and we want to be in the community and we just happen to have a software as well, right? And that's kind of like our hearts behind it. When people don't realize that, I think that especially that is what caused people to reach out in a really harsh way sometimes because it's just not the average. And I'll be real, like we've come up with plans to give profit back to the podcast hosts, and we do that. And it's not a whole lot yet, but I trust that it's going to continue to grow and expand because again, we care. I'm not like I want to drive a Lamborghini. I want to screw the industry people, and I don't want podcasters to bother me. I want to be too big and high and mighty to do that, right? And it's just not me. And so, like, yes, there are other not podcasters, other software companies that are doing what we're doing on steroids, probably like absolutely crushing it. I'm just following the lead of others that have done really well, if I can be real. But I want to build that type that's community driven, that has me as part of it, just as another member of the community, not the opposite of like, let's gate ourselves from our quote unquote users, right? And I think that we're going to more and more see a divide down the road. I personally hope the way that we're doing it, which is what I call like a human to human type business, I really hope to see more of that in the future. But I don't know because the other way is easier. You don't get your heart broken if you can't talk to me, right? Like if you don't talk to me, I don't get to hear that. So I don't know. I really don't know what the future of that looks like, but we're trying to like make a path that again is more like human to human business community driven.
Yeah, and it's all about understanding that technology is not all bad. It's the way that you're going to use it. The thing is, we can. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I do not want to be 65 and be reliant on a company for my retirement. To me, that sounds absolutely insane. That sounds nuts. How do you know that company's going to pay you? Maybe they're going to shut down. So I think more and more now, there is this opportunity of looking at other ways of bettering your future. Okay, maybe possible, fame, maybe. I don't know. But giving yourself security, love, passion, and a hobby.
I've personally found that fulfillment in life never comes from work. I mean, some people can define themselves by it, and interestingly enough, especially I have no idea how old you are. I'm in my mid 30s at the time of recording.
24.
So 24. Yeah, we're born at different times. So I'm born in 88. But people that were born like let's just go 10 years before me, even they came from more of like an industrial age, if you will, and a lot of them define themselves by their work. And it's interesting because a lot of people like for past generations, as soon as they retire, they start to like their health declines rapidly. It's because all purpose stopped, right? And I just think that there needs to be slightly a different standard, like you're saying, like our passions, hobbies, and stuff like that. And those things don't need to be your primary form of income. It's nice when it can be, but you still have to do those things. And my other issue that I've seen sometimes is people that are like, oh, well, I want my passion to be what I do full time. I'm like, well, your passion might not be a passion anymore when you have to build systems around it, staff around it, right? Like maybe you don't want to do that to what you're passionate about. Maybe that should stay your hobby so you can have fun doing it. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is like how like our identity. And when you wrap it up too much in one thing, retiring at 65, working my butt off for this corporate job until that point, like that becomes who you are. And when you lose that, I've just seen it wreck people, not just from a health perspective, but also just like mentally feeling like I don't have a place, a purpose anymore. Practicing all these things is what I think, and it sounds like you think this as well, is that's what brings a fulfilled life, is when we're doing all these things at the same time, right? Not just saying, well, I'm just going to do this, I'll do fun stuff later. Like find a way to fit it in, even if you're doing a little bit less of each thing.
Yeah. It's that wild thought I like to throw out there. What if John Lennon wasn't shot? What if John Lennon was alive today? Would he make a podcast? And if he did make a podcast, what would it be about?
I just heard, you recently asked this on the podcast. I was listening to one of your episodes. Didn't you ask the same question?
I think so, but I don't remember.
I can't remember who that was, but somebody answered it really well. I'm not going to answer it that well. So let me just not think about that. I don't know the answer. I mean, maybe I think it'd be cool, but I don't know.
It has nothing. It has nothing to do about the person. It has nothing to do about John Lennon. It's imagining. Again, this is the idea: is it imagining a situation where if you could change something, and you were able to have something now that would not be practical to have now, how would it benefit you in any way? And this could apply to many different things. Because like you're saying is passions, hobby, people, this glory for fame. But if you have your passion and you have also your income and you're able to balance those two things out, being able to understand that, I feel is a deeper level because a lot of the times we have very difficulty separating the two. I feel I have that problem separating from the two.
Oh, me too. I mean, we're so driven by our culture and society. You know who did? I don't know if you're an Eddie Vedder fan, Pearl Jam, but
Oh, okay.
he did some solo stuff. He had this great song called Society, and the whole song was about like how society's a crazy breed and hope you're not lonely without me. We all have more than we need, so we need more space. And it's just like keeps on talking about this. But the truth is, I think that our like really heavily social media has had a big impact on us because we see everything everyone's doing, but it's all the highlight reels. So we try to one up everyone's highlight reels. But I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and just south of me, there's a really nice neighborhood that I'm pretty sure no one who lives in it can afford it. They just all try to keep up with each other. And so they've all need to devote more to work. And they have like not only a great corporate job, but also side hustles to just try to pay for it all. And it's like
We have a place out here. It's called
it's like
Plantation.
that's a great name for it.
It's in Broward County.
Oh man. So
Yeah.
anyway, the whole point is that I think that if we just take a step back and stop comparing ourselves to other people and just really think about what we enjoy in life, you realize you need a lot less than you have. And like, I'm not saying go be a minimalist, but like, you don't need all the things. And like, so if you're like, man, I just need to work so I can make more money. It's like, well, why do you need to make more money? Like when will we develop the discipline to know when enough is enough so that we can have the proper balance? And I'm with you. That is very difficult to do because again, we're like, oh man, it'd be so cool just to have that car, or it'd be so nice to have that bigger house, right? Like, or more nicer things. And, but the reality is like,
car, but I did that a little stupid but a little smart.
oh, what'd you do?
I had a RAV4 and I traded it in for a 2011 Ford Mustang convertible.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so cost me $6,000 more, but I get 310 horsepower, V6, naturally aspirated.
Can't
Wow.
listen. I love cars, and if there's a temptation, we're talking about like this is a struggle for both of us. I like look at cars, they like drive by, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta get that. Like, why don't I not have that? You know, like,
I've wanted a Mustang since I was a kid.
well then, congrats, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's
So
pretty cool.
it was definitely worth the trade, but there are problems that like you start to realize about the car. You know, like again, like the practicalities kick in is like, oh, it's rear wheel drive. Not really great on slippery roads.
Right. Although I like my dream is to end up like I currently have a front wheel drive car. I like rear wheel drive cars better. Even though they have more
Really?
maintenance and more needs across the board, I don't know what there's something about being pushed by a car versus pulled by it. It's kind of like a weird thing to say, but like you think about front wheel drive, it's like it's pulling you, but if it's behind you, it feels like it's pushing you. I don't know why. I feel like I can tell the difference a little bit. So
No, no. You can definitely feel the difference because also mine is naturally aspirated, and like when I rev it, I can feel the back wheel definitely kick in.
that's
So
so
yeah,
sweet.
yeah. So I definitely understand what you're talking about. Damn, the truth is, it's just God. Sometimes having pleasure and having like a sense of balance, like it actually is a practical car,
Mm-hmm.
you
Ish.
know,
Yeah.
and practical-ish.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's something that I'm able to enjoy instead of a car that is a RAV4. No offense, everybody has one. Literally every single person has one.
But if you don't care about cars, it's very reliable, good on gas. There's no problem with that. Like, no, I have no
No,
shade
no,
for
no,
that
of
vehicle.
course not.
But if you're a car person, that's just not going to work. Like, you're never going to scratch that itch. You have a hole in your heart that's the size of a Mustang. You're going to have to get a Mustang, right? That's a
So
terrible example.
what is your dream car? I gotta hear this.
Okay, right now, at time of recording this, I just recently spotted the new Lotus Emera, and
Ooh.
I like 6-speed manual vehicles. It's 6-speed,
Okay.
2 seats, so 2 doors, 2 seats, but also has all the fancy bells and whistles that my wife would love, right? And then rear wheel drive. And so like it checks every single box and it looks
Two-seater?
really clean. Yeah, two-seater. Yeah. I like that. I like two-door, but without the back seat in it that no one can actually sit in anyway. I'm like, just do away with that, you know? So some two-door cars have figured out where they have enough legroom that you can put people in it. But like my current vehicle, like you can't actually get in it. So it's like I have a two-door Honda Civic Si, 6-speed. Really love it, but it's too small to fit anyone in the back of it. So it's like, why did they even add the seat? You know, it must be insurance or
Yeah.
something. I don't know.
Well, the really like banana part about the SI was trying to get stuff into the back seats.
Yeah, because the seat doesn't even move all the way up. Still
Correct.
doesn't. Yeah,
So try imagining like going out for a weekend, like the trunk is not that big. You think it is, it's really not. And
right,
then you need to use the back seats, but like you can't really put anything back there.
right. Because you can't. The seat doesn't move far enough for. Anyway, we're talking about cars now.
Bananas.
But hey, we're talking about. Here's the thing. Like this is. I'm not gonna call it the bane of our existence, but the cars are technically money pits, right? But they do bring us. For some of us, they bring a sense of happiness and joy that I do think that I'm not telling people to go out and buy a Ferrari, like, right? Like, be smart about it. But like, if you feel like, man, I just really get so much out of that, then
Do
maybe
you
that is something to look
understand
for.
how expensive? Like, I was watching a video about this the other day. To own a Ferrari, you have to be a part of the Ferrari club. And in order to be a part of the Ferrari club, you have to wait on a list. And like, there's all of these fees. So, like, besides the $400,000 you have to pay for the car, there's like an additional $200,000 just with the club and everything else that goes with it. It's insane.
Dude, okay, so my dad loves cars. Used to love cars. He's totally like sick of them now because he had so many problems with them. But he sold a
Oh,
business years back and bought like a few really nice vehicles. And one of them,
okay.
he literally he bought like a supercar Jaguar. It's beautiful. And he was
XKJ?
leaving. I don't know. I can't remember what it is. It's
Sorry.
something. It's I should know, but he has all the decals and stuff off of it, so I can't remember exactly what it is.
That's
But
fine.
something
We'll Google this later when we're off air.
we'll figure it out. I'll take a picture of it next time I see it, and you tell me what it is.
Okay.
But anyway, so he'd been leaving it like outside because he had other cars in the garage, and just like I mean, he lives in a nice neighborhood. It wasn't like trees were dropping stuff on it. And then he's like, "Oh man, dude, I have such an expensive repair on this car." I was like, "What happened?" He goes, "Oh well, like the roof kind of like fell in on the inside because I was leaving outside. And you can't leave it outside." I was like, "Hold on a minute, Dad." I'm like, "You're telling me you bought a 6-figure car that's an indoor car?" I was like, what is that?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's super frustrating." He goes, it was like a $12,000 repair or something like that. I'm like, and at that point, I'm like, that's more than the car I'm driving. This is like going back a few like years. I'm like, how is this like a thing? Like these cars should like hold up, right? But it's funny because for a while it really did bring him joy, and he's like, "Man, I am so tired of the maintenance of these things. I want something practical." And now it's funny, he drives like just an average truck, and he has like a really old car that was my grandma's that my grandma was time for her to stop driving.
Is it a
So he took it.
Chrysler?
No, it's a 2002 Corolla, and my
Okay.
dad my dad loves that thing. Like, it's so funny. He'll go on a date, and I know he still has like some nice cars, but that's what he rolls up in with my stepmom. I'm like, "Dad, come on, man." I'm like, bust out the Jag here and there, you know? He's like, oh no, this car's just more practical. So it's one of those things going back to our whole point here. Like it's kind of interesting that like what we spend our money on. But I heard some great advice here. And somebody said, like, think of the things that you actually want and then get creative with ways you can actually get them without having to like do anything crazy. Like write down the amount of money you think it would take, and that's what you have to work to start doing.
That's what I did with my Mustang. I did a trade with CarMax. So, and the crazy part is like the car is a 2011, but the Mustang like looks like it's pretty modern because like the S197 has been around for so long. Like anyway, and then on top of that, I mean, it added 6,000, which is non-practical, but it is possible for me to pay that off. But you're right. It's just realizing that you can have goals and dreams and wants, but like be practical. Like, how could you make this possible? Like, how can you? You probably can explain this a lot better than I can. I'm just
Here, I'll explain the way I heard somebody say it. And I don't recall
okay.
who it was, but somebody sent me this video. It was really interesting. It was a guy on stage asking people in the audience, how much money do you think you need to make in order to have the absolute perfect dream life? And like the first person was like what the video was explaining. And the guy on stage asked, and he's like, I think I need to make $100 million a year. And he's like, how did you get to that number? First off, $100 million a year. I'm like, that sounds insane. But anyway, the guy's like, well, I'd really like to own a yacht and a plane. And he had like all these things. And the guy's like, cool, you're doing this right. Wildest dreams, right? And he's like, and I want to be able to like have a vacation home in this country because my family loves to go there. So I need like a really expensive home there too. And the guy literally bust out a whiteboard and goes, okay, you need to buy an airplane. How much does that cost? People like Google it. It's like $5 million for like the plane. He goes, did you know you can lease these planes? You can find other people to lease it with you. And he goes, you'll spend about 15 grand a year. And he's like, so instead of $5 million, let's put that as 15 grand a year. So instead of $5 million now, you just need to make 15 grand a year for that.
Oh my
Okay.
god.
Your house. He's like, how about you just rent a big Airbnb every time you want to go over there? He goes, we just saved you $4 million there. And he breaks it down. He ended up, and this was like a 15-minute thing. At the end of it, he showed the guy, he goes, okay, you think you need to make $100 million for all these things? First off, it was only like 60 million. But beyond that, you actually only need to make about 285,000 or something like that to actually make this a reality. He's like, that seems a little bit more realistic, right? Now, how do we get you $185,000? And the rest, I don't remember, but I was like, man, they just broke that down in a way that's like, you don't need everything you think you need. And even if you do, there's an alternative way of getting it where you don't need to like be insane with like how much you have to make and stuff.
I know. It's we live as material. We live in a very material world, and it's become more of an custom where there's new things every single year. There's new motherfuckers coming up with new ways to screw us with this new shtick and this new spiel. So you think to yourself, like I think to myself, I'm tired. I literally am tired of giving a shit. If I go on vacation, where are we going? I don't know. Are we going to go there? I don't know. So do you want to like stop? I just completely in the flow mind state of you don't always need to plan life like you're carving it on a tree.
That's well said. I agree with that. We've lost, I don't know how to say it. And I don't mean to just like dog society. There's some great things happening in the world.
Oh yeah, for sure. But we're just,
Yeah,
we're just
on, I just wanna make sure.
dudes in the dude room.
With other people listening,
Yeah, for sure.
you're like, oh shoot, I forgot someone hears this, right?
Oh right, shit.
But I do think that we just have this. We're all becoming a little bit robotic. I remember like
Yeah.
you were younger than I. What year were you born? Sorry, what year?
99.
Okay, so you're born the year The Matrix came out. All right, so I was 11 when
Tarzan.
Okay, good point. That's probably one that you remember more. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I remember when I saw The Matrix, mind blown. First off, as a kid, but I was like, wow, how crazy of that idea. Who could have come up with something so insane? And now I watch it, I'm like, huh, some of this feels a little too close to home. I'm like, do I have any plugs in my neck? Like what's going on here? The reason I say this is because I just think that we've kind of
That was a glitch in my brain going off.
I saw the glitch. I'm just letting everyone know. Keep an eye on Dave, everybody. He might be lost in the groove. Just letting you know. So, but my point is just I think that so many of us we don't mean to. We just kind of fall into the trends of what is set in front of us. and we almost don't even know a way. It's like cattle heading into a slaughter, right? Like, and I don't mean to be morbid by saying it that way, but it is really weird to watch. And I just think that some of us need to like literally wake up and take a step back and be like, what is it that I actually want? Like, and sometimes it's like, I don't want to go where everyone else is going. I don't want to have like some elaborate plan. Let's just go and do whatever seems fun to us in this moment instead of like, oh, we got to do this because everyone else is doing it right now.
I I myself have had to make very difficult choices. And the thing that I've realized over and over again, it's only been difficult to a certain degree because I made it difficult. When I lost my host, Mike, we were literally like right now, he sent me a long message and he quit. And I could have given up and said, screw this, fuck this, I'm done. But I didn't. I found a few people, figured out a few things, mumbled a few times. They're all gone except one. 1 year later, got segment and one show. It's it's realizing that the difficulty is in your head. It's in your head.
What do you do about that? Like, first off, that realization is like kind of a paradigm shift because I think some of us want to put everything on external factors, but the reality is it's our own internal factor. Like, what do you do with that understanding? I don't mean to turn this on you, but I am really curious, Dave. Like, what do you do with that?
What do you mean?
Like having that realization that again, I feel that most people don't have. Like that's not common wisdom, right? Of understanding that it's all in your head. Like, what do you now do? Like, what's your next action step when you realize, okay, this is actually a me thing, not what's happening to me?
Well, I try to keep, like, for example, with Carissa, being that she is my best friend and also we are co-host,
You're at
having
the American Groove segment, is that right? Is that what it is?
yeah,
Cool. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, she's cool. I don't
Oh,
know her,
she's
but
awesome.
she seems cool. Sorry, you continue. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
She's from
I
Iowa. I mean, like when she told me she was from Iowa, I was like, "Girl, you got to talk more. What the hell is Iowa?" That's the first thing I asked her.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I've heard her and I'm like, she seems really cool. I've never met her, but she seems cool.
No, she really is, and it's just honestly just a realization that things happen for a reason. And I can be upset and angry. Like I have every right to be. But I know that maybe it's not clear right now. Maybe it'll be I don't know, maybe in a few months, maybe in a day or so, it doesn't really matter. In a way, it's kind of like understanding flow state. I know I'm gonna sound like a guru and a hippie right now, and that's all right. But
Buckle up, everybody. Buckle up.
buckle up. It's where you're able to focus your mindset and just like, isn't that what podcasting is? It's like a flow state, creating like a balance of storytelling and progression and all kinds of weird shit, including aliens and Joe Rogan.
Never at the same time though.
No, never at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you just said. Like, it's the ability to focus your mind and to get in that proper mindset. I really, I think that's what it is. One of us, when we have to like finally look internally, having that realization again, that's a paradigm shift for most people. Is like the fact, okay, what's going on around me? Like, sure, it might have a little bit of effect on me, but mostly it's my reaction to that. And getting in that proper mindset of just realizing that and really stepping above the things that are happening around you or pulling yourself out of it, right? Because I think all of us are doing things in our lives that we don't actually have to do. Like for me, example, there are so many things in software that like quote unquote you have to do if you're a software founder. And like when you step back, I'm like, well, what's the benefit? Well, what's like the negative? Why am I doing this? And people are like, wow, you don't like. One is like I don't do a whole lot on TikTok. I personally, it brings me no joy. I don't even like consuming on it. And I'm not saying that to dog it. It's just not for me. And
Oh,
so like,
are you being wait? Sir, are you serious? You don't like?
yeah, TikTok's just not really my thing. Like I just don't enjoy it. I don't know why.
Oh my god, I did not know this.
So I kind of opted out of really using it. I'm on there like just a little bit, but people are like, "Oh man, you're missing so much opportunity." And that might be the case, but the reality is I don't have to do it, right? Like there's no requirement saying if you want to be a
No.
good software founder, then you have to do it. But it's funny that you didn't know that, but it's just not my place. Like here's the thing, I actually don't mind watching other people's stuff on it. I don't like posting on it. I just the whole I don't know what it is. It just doesn't make sense in my head for some reason.
Yeah, I'm now kind of understanding what. Well, I'm not a fan of TikTok. I just post there because like I feel like I have to.
Do
But
you though? Right? You don't have to. I'm not telling you to stop. I'm just saying like we don't have to do this stuff.
well, I kind of took your advice where I turned our Instagram page into our fan page. So I pretty much just use that when I want to post updates and like that's it. And then there like clips go out on other platforms, but
Cool. I like that.
it's just it takes so much of my energy and just like the thought of posting is just I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. It's in my head repeatedly like every second. Oh my god. It's annoying. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a pain in the ass and it's like
That's the thing. We don't have to do it. And again, I know society and I don't know. There's some metrics that show that's important. Marketers like, oh, you got to be on there. And I've heard all that. But at the end of the day, like I like a couple. I like Facebook, which is maybe showing my age or something like that. And
no,
I just got on
I like
X.
Facebook.
Okay, cool. It's good to hear. I recently got on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days.
Twitter.
Like I got on it like in 2021 or 2022 or something like that. And I know, super late to the game. And I actually really like it. I think it's fun. And I try to stay out of the drama of it because apparently there's a whole corner of it that's like psycho. But I just do my best to like stay in my corner, in my lane. And so I focus on those platforms because I actually think that they're kind of cool. That's been my experience at least.
Yeah, I haven't been on Twitter in about a year. And it honestly is because I was lazy. I didn't want to post on too many platforms.
And that's great. I respect that.
But you are right, by the way. There are, oh my God, my favorite wild shenanigan on Twitter was the topic of baby food. So there was
Baby food?
there was a baby food shortage a couple of months ago. And I'm like looking through this. I'm like, what is this? And like just keeps on going down. And then sure enough, like the original link is like from this like website with like a billion ad. I'm like, okay. So I know you're talking about, like it's like a rabbit hole. You gotta go down. We're like, where's this from? Damn, sometimes it is a lot of fun. Even though it's a waste of time, it is so fun.
Yeah, that's my problem. That's why I try to avoid YouTube. Like we use it for business, but I'm like watching like a series. Oh, I need to learn this. I'm going to go ahead and watch this. I'll watch one of Into the Groove videos, and next thing you know, I'm watching. I don't know, an alligator wrestle like an owl or something like that. And it's
That's
like
what they do out in Jacksonville.
Yeah,
Damn,
apparently.
boy.
But I'm like watching. I'm like, how did I get here? Like, hold on. Like I step back into myself. I'm like, how did I get here? Why am I watching this? Like what is happening here?
I mean, the weirdest thing that I got was them hunting alligators on my YouTube shorts. Oh my god, so wild! Because they have hunting out in the Everglades.
You're close to the Everglades, right? Aren't you close to it?
I'm about 30 minutes away.
I'd consider that close. You have 30-foot gators that end up in your backyard all the time, I'm sure. So
we've had gators in the lake that's near us, but I've never actually. I like to eat gators. I don't like actually to see them.
We're gonna turn to Florida Man if we keep this going. We got to change the topic. We
got to change the topic.
Can't
Florida Man, go away.
A fun game for everybody who's listening. If you're not in Florida, I want you to type in your birthday followed by Florida Man into Google, into a search engine, and whatever comes up first is your inner Florida Man. So anyone who has not done this, even if you're not from Florida, never been to Florida, you have an inner Florida Man, and it's your birth date followed by the word Florida Man. Check it out.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
Only you, like just like one random night, like late working on software, like I'm bored. Oh, Florida Man. Okay, birthday. Oh my God, this is so cool.
Call my Florida Man.
Oh my god.
Do you know who yours is? I mean, that's the question. That's what the question for everyone listening. Do you know who yours is?
I
So,
do not know what my Florida man is. Do you want my birthday?
I don't know. We don't need to do all that. I'm like typing mine and I shouldn't be. Just
Oh
ask
my
a different question. We'll
god.
keep on going here.
Oh my god, we've gone too deep. I don't know. We
We
can go.
have.
We can get out of here.
Hold on. Mine is perfect. I have to say it now. I just looked it up. Mine says, so I typed in my 216 Florida man. That's my birth date. And it says Florida man
February
claiming people were
16th?
February 16th.
Okay.
And so I'm looking up right now, and the first thing that comes up is Florida man claiming people were eating his brains, and then he leads cops onto a wild chase, and they were on a golf course. I mean, listen, that's Florida right there for everybody. So that's what I got on my end, at least. I don't know what you got, Dave, if you want to share it. How did we end up here? We were supposed to get away from this.
Oh my god, we went too deep. No, it's all right. I mean, I will tell you, like, it is a great place to be.
For sure.
I kind of love it out here, and it's kind of cool. You're not the only person that I've met or like interacted out here that's creating something new. You know, whether artistic, software, technology, artistic, or podcast or musical. I like music. I do. I do really love, like, I've had musicians on the podcast. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I heard again. Listen, I can't remember his name right now, but I heard somebody that was like just had a fascinating experience, and he was a musician. I'm blanking on his name right now, but and I know you got your guitar in the background here. Know you're a guitar player. I right now what I'm playing is a ukulele. You can't see it; it's just off screen. But I just wanted to play ukulele, and I'm having a blast with it. I'm like 2 weeks in. It's been super fun.
Oh my god! Wait, so are you doing like online ukulele classes? Are you doing in person?
Neither. I'm just playing and like listening to stuff and just trying to like strum and figure it out and stuff like that. Just here's the thing, like I love software and it does activate a certain creative element in your brain, but it also can be very tedious. It's a lot of screens, it's a lot of deep thinking. And so sometimes I just need a creative outlet, and sometimes it's listening to your podcast, sometimes it's sitting out on my porch strumming a ukulele, right? Just to kind of get my mind flowing in a different state than it does when I'm in front of a computer being like, okay, how do I make this better for people? Right? Sometimes that's a really big question. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to strum this thing until something sounds good.
It's a great way of keeping everybody out of the house.
Why are you saying you're not good or I'm not good? What are you saying?
No, well, I'm just saying that when you need like inner peace
Yeah.
and need that moment, you know, and having like people all around, you just like you hit that wrong note, you're like, da, 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 like, are they
Right.
gone yet? Da, da, da.
I
But
think I make it ukulele. It's kind of hard to make it not sound good. So I've done all right with that. I haven't scared anyone off yet. So I don't think.
it's a fun instrument. It's like a little mini guitar, but kind of
Yeah.
squeakier.
Yeah.
That's really
I've enjoyed it.
fun.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. So like, I think music is even though like I don't consider myself a musician, I can play it, and people will be like, "Oh wow, you can actually play that." And sure, I can enough to get me by. But not being like an actual musician, it's just so healthy for me to do. I come back to the computer again, asking the big question: How do I make what I'm doing better for people from a software perspective, with more clarity, more focus? I just think it's undersold the value of playing some sort of instrument or singing, anything like that. I just think it activates, and there's probably science behind this, but I know it does something in your brain that just other things don't do, that is healthy and positively impacts other parts of your life.
Well, it's also the idea of why why is it the case that there are people that tend to be more artistic than others, right?
Mhm.
And I view software engineering, you know, and programming. I mean, that is creativity. You can't be like a squared person to do software engineering or like edit programming or anything like no. But I don't necessarily believe that. I think all people are artistic, but I think that people will turn it off.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, there's this interesting study done of kids entering kindergarten. It was done on with 1,000 kids. They were asked, "Are you creative?" And 98% of them said yes. Right, which can be translated into like being artistic and stuff like that. And then the same poll was done on 1,000 kids that were leaving high school. So they're 18. So I don't know what age they were to start, but basically 18. And only 2% said yes to the question, "Are you creative?" And it's interesting. Like so many of us, you're right, we're just not exercising it. And I think that creativity, art, like I think it's a muscle. Like people are like, "Oh, I'm just not good at that." I'm like, but have you actually given it a real shot? Have you actually done it in a way that you enjoy it? And I think there it kind of goes like full circle we've been talking about. Like it is so important to do that, to pull yourself out of like the simulation, if you will, right? And just be like, you know what? I am creative. I can be artistic, right? And to just give it a shot. Like, great example is my uncle. He's an architect for years. And an architect's the last person you think would be making abstract paintings. He's done a painting every weekend for like the last like 5 years, and now his paintings are incredible. And he told me he's a better architect because of these abstract paintings that he's making. Like throwing paint on a canvas. It's crazy.
I mean, you have an uncle that is an abstract painter, but also an architect.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Wow. What does he design, like building wise?
Interestingly enough, mostly like restaurants and stuff like that. So he does like upscale restaurants
Interesting.
and like designs like the way it's going to work and stuff like that.
Oh my God. Have you been to any of the restaurants he's designed?
Yes, it makes me feel so cool. And here's the thing, like I'm not one to ever be like, "Hey, I'm a software guy," but I'm like, I go into a restaurant if I know my uncle made. I'm like, Larry's my uncle. I do that like every time. I can't even help myself. I'm like, yeah, he designed this place. It's kind of cool. Like I don't get discounts or anything like that, but I have to make it known that I have a really cool uncle. So
Like you should get like a badge, like an iron-on badge that you could wear
this
with
is a
that
terrible idea.
jacket.
This
Yeah.
is a terrible idea.
Like just like announcing like, hello, this building.
My uncle did this, right? I took him back to it's funny, he's such a humble guy. I took him back to one of the restaurants he did recently. My wife and I and my aunt and
Oh
uncle
wow.
went together, and he hadn't been there since it first opened. It had been, like, 4 or 5 years. And, like, I was like,
Oh
"Man,
wow.
I was like, "Let's tell the staff." He's like, "No, I don't wanna tell them that." I'm like, I'm telling him, sure enough, someone walked up, I'm like, "My uncle designed the place." And he's, like, over here like, "Oh my gosh, Alex, like, please be quiet." So, anyway, to the point, he's a guy who, like, once again, is doing a lot of work on paper, on computers, but he loves doing abstract art. And if he would have never started giving it the shot, I imagine his first, let's say, he's been doing it for 4 years. The first 52 were probably garbage, right? But now you look at him, you're like, wow, this is like inspired work. And I think enough of us, we just don't actually exercise and flex that muscle. And I believe it's extremely healthy and more needed than ever before.
Yeah, it's really for me it really boils down to what is the most important thing. Like what you need right now that's the most important thing. And it's a hard question to answer. And I don't think there is an answer.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer. I'm thinking right now. I don't know how to answer that.
Because there is so many things that are important to you right now. It's not just one thing, it's multiple things.
A
Yeah,
movie that
that
portrayed that really well. Do you remember the compass in Jack
Pocahontas.
Sparrow's compass? No, in Jack Sparrow's compass, it would point to whatever you longed for the most, and it was
That
going all different
compass.
directions, right? In, Pirates of the Caribbean. I is that like, I'm struggling to answer the question because my mind hits 10 different things, right? Which is maybe a problem, but I feel like I'm holding that compass, like, we gotta go no, this wait, back the other way, right?
That
Like
way. No. That way. But it's so hard to promise, everything. It's so hard to like expect that this is the path and this is the way to be successful. But you have to be real. Like, work doesn't mean doing it until you want to quit. And being successful doesn't mean that you have to necessarily be super famous. And maybe it is important to like add in fun and inspiration and like it's nice to feel human and real and non-artificial.
yeah, for me, I would say the thing that has I'm not like here's the funny thing, like, I might have, like, a little bit of quote, unquote, "celebrity" in the podcasting space, but it's a very small niche and stuff like that. So you're like, "Oh, you're famous." I'm like, among, like, 10 people, Like, but here's the thing, none of that has and I'm downplaying it a little bit, I know, but, like, my point is that none of that has done very much for me. What's done a lot for me is true relationships in my life, true friendships, and I think that if you look at people that are really famous, like and I don't mean to get morbid, but, like, the suicide rates aren't much different than people that are really struggling. The depression rates might even be higher, and the reality of it is thinking we need to get rich and famous, the grass is always green on the other side. All the data still shows you those people struggle just like the rest of us, and the only thing I've really found that's, like, has been helpful. First off, like I happen to be, I believe in Jesus from the Bible. So like that's helped me a ton. And then the relationships I have around me in my life, the people that I'm actually doing life with, and how to build what I call meaningful experiences with those people. And to me, a meaningful experience is something that just you remember, something you don't forget. And like one of the things I love is podcast interviews. I'm not a guy who's done tens of thousands of interviews. This to me is a meaningful experience. Like I'm not going to forget this. If I run into you somewhere down the road, I'm like, no way, we did a podcast together one time, right? Like I
Oh,
have that baseline, which I
you
think is cool.
if you come down to Fort Lauderdale, honey, we gotta schedule something. Like, well, I work in I work in a brewery down in Oakland Park, so we'll talk off air. But
We are going to talk off air.
yeah,
This sounds like we got to plan brewing. Get what I said there? You get that?
ooh, damn. But can I ask you something?
Please.
I think the most important, sorry, not the most important. I think like the whole thing that we've been talking about from start until finish is not necessarily being a successful podcaster, not necessarily wanting to be a podcaster, but like, what is it like? You see, you can say famous or whatever, but the thing about famous people are they're still people. And being people means that they have the same problems like everybody else does. And the same thing like with podcasting, you're gonna have the same problem like every other person out there that is working on a project or a passion.
Yeah, I've seen that to be true so many times. People first off, like assume that hey, I'm instantly going to grow as a celebrity, as from a monetization standpoint. That's not the reality of it. And I go back to what we said earlier, which is just like do if you enjoy it, if it's fun, if it can be a hobby, right? If it brings you joy, if it serves people, great. Like those are all the things. But yeah, like again, grass is always greener. But I think that this is an outlet for us. And it's a beautiful outlet because people also get to hear it. And for them, it sparks creativity, it sparks joy, whatever it might be, right? It's causing some sort of transformation in their lives. And I really find that to be the beauty of podcasting. But you're going to have struggles just like anything else. And it's just a matter of like, I tell people all the time to quit, which sounds terrible, but I'm like, if you
I
really
don't
hate
blame
this as
you.
much as you're telling,
I
if you
blame
hate
you.
this as much as you tell me you do, or like it's causing that much stress and anxiety, like just go find something else, right? Like go find something else because it's not serving you. And so I don't tell, I'm not the guy who's like everyone needs a podcast. Like if it's good for you, you enjoy it, then please do it. But like, it's not for everybody. And you're going to have struggles doing this. Even if you make it as a podcaster, we still have to produce an episode, right? You know, you have a team, you're still going to be involved somehow. You're going to be at least recording, right? There's always going to be
Yeah.
something involved. So if you're saying, I'll enjoy this more when, I think if you have to say that, then maybe you shouldn't wait for quote unquote when, and you should find a different lane to be in.
Again, it's like coming to realization and being real with yourself. You expect can't expect the universe to turn and step. You know, you said that you consider yourself a religious person. I'm not myself a religious person. However, I believe in the universe. And I believe that in a way that if you want to call it God, you know, there is this connection that things happen for a reason. And the clarity and understanding comes with patience.
Patience. You just lost listeners by using that word.
Hey.
It's a 4-letter word. You had to put explicit on this show now.
Eh,
Good for you.
I know. I gotta put a lot of
Patient.
the.
I just did a recording earlier today on somebody's podcast, and it's going to be his like New Year's resolution
Oh,
podcast episode.
nice.
And those are always fun. I like goals. I think it's fun to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I really, he's like, what's like the ultimate key? And I said one word: consistency. And I said, because results take time. Like it takes time. It takes patience. You can't try it for a week. And if it doesn't work, quit, right? No, try it for a year and see what happens. And if you feel like you're starting to get something, try it for another year and keep on going. So like patience is a lost art, unfortunately. But I mean, being consistent, being patient has always paid off for me personally. Like, well, I should say almost always. For the most part, it has, right?
Right. Well, because you don't know if there's guaranteed success. All you know is that you're doing this and you want to do it. If you're expecting success, like you said, there's a lot of other industries, like the entertainment industry, the podcasting industry. These are not industries you want to go into if you don't want to lose and lose over and over and over again.
I shouldn't smile and laugh, but
No,
I've seen it. You're right.
it's so true. But like I said again, and I feel like one of the reasons why I've wanted to talk with you is you in many ways developed a platform like PodMatch and PodPros and your whole team and the whole system around it that really dedicated itself to simplicity. Like, I'm dyslexic and I have learning disabilities. I press a stupid button and the button does this. I put a message, press purple button. Like, dude, it's so, for me, it's so
I
just
love
so,
hearing that.
it's just so dumb and it's so dumb and stupid and fun at the same time, because when I'm lazy about it, I'm like, oh, why am I being lazy about it? This is easy. I'm gonna be done in 2 minutes.
Just made my day twice. I mean, you made my day twice. I'm good tomorrow too. I'm not even gonna show up for Thanksgiving tomorrow with my family. I'm done. So
Damn, bro.
I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. But thank you.
I sure hope so.
That's a yes. I am definitely kidding. That's a huge compliment, though. I am very appreciative to hear that.
But I'm probably not the only person that have told you this before. I mean, that is something that a lot of people have complained about. We were talking about when we were first starting this recording. Is I use Zencaster, and Zencaster, my own personal experience has been a lot better than Riverside, but I have audio and connection issues from time to time. We had today an issue. So those are things that bothers me, and I feel like because it's not made by podcasters, or it's not made by people that have the experience and the knowledge to work with this. Whereas I feel with your programs, in a way, you have your expertise, and coming from that. Sorry if I'm going like so deep over here, but
No, you're good. Yeah, I'm following. Yeah.
I just feel that if you want honesty, you want somebody that knows what they're doing, right? Isn't that?
Yes. Here's an example. I had somebody who wanted to be my financial advisor, and I just went to dinner with them, and I was asking them just some personal questions. Like, we finished work, and I was asking personal questions. They're like, "Oh man, my finances at home are like an absolute wreck." They're like, "My full-time job is take care of other people, so like I really don't focus on mine." And that was a huge red flag, because I was like, "Wait a minute, like you're preaching this stuff, but you're not doing it. Like, why is that?" And I find the same with, like, I always tell people, "Hey, whatever software you use, forget podcasting, whatever it is that you use, if the people that made it aren't doing that craft, shouldn't that be a slight red flag? Like, why are they not? If they're like, we make it easy and fun, it's like, so why aren't you doing it?" Right? Like, that's a scary thing. It'd be like going to a theme park and you asking the person who's running the ride, "Hey, have you ever been on this ride?" Like, "I would never go on this. That'd be terrifying." It's like, why? Like, "I don't know about it, but enjoy your ride." You'd be like, "I'm not getting on this." Right? I think that some of us maybe need to have that perspective and step back and be like, why won't they get on their own thing? Right? That's, again, I
Yeah.
think practice what you preach. That's I'm a podcaster first. I'm a podcasting software provider second.
Yeah, it's true. It's all about like blah. It's like basically fitting in the role and making the right role. Sorry, I know we're taking a little longer. But being able to like position yourself and be able to give what you say, not say and not give.
That's well said. I couldn't agree. I could not agree more with that. I think that's a great statement.
Um, what was I going to ask you? Oh, I was going to ask you. I've been preaching and talking, and I haven't really remembered. Where can people find your program, PodMatch, the whole jazz? I'm going to stop talking because you can explain this a lot better than I can.
Well, we explain what it is, right? It connects podcast guests and hosts for interviews. Everything I do is at podmatch.com. We currently have another website as well, but we're moving everything to podmatch.com. So for the future, that is the one website. And any way you reach out, just so you know, you're going to either get me or you're going to get my wife, Alicia. If you get Alicia and you want to talk to me, just tell her you want to talk to Alex and she will pass it on to me. But chances are you'll probably end up with me first anyway. But yeah, everything we do, podmatch.com, even the social links and everything like that is on there. I try to be very accessible in the space. That's, again, just what I believe in.
Perfect. Socials. I know that you're not a big fan of the TikTok, but do you have any socials where people can find you?
Yeah. And so again, bottom of podmatch.com, you'll find all those. But if you just look up Alex Sanfilippo, if you can figure out how to spell it, you'll find it anywhere. And I'm technically on all of them. I ask you not to message me on TikTok though, because it might take me a while to get back. But anywhere else, you're going to hear back from me pretty quick.
Okay. Except TikTok.
Except TikTok.
Okay.
Again, maybe I'll be there. You could ask me in a month. I'd be like, I fell in love with TikTok, and I could be doing dance videos on there. Who knows? Maybe.
I probably will receive an email about this. Just like knowing the email chain, like, oh god, wait. Okay, so now he uses TikTok? When did this happen? Damn. Well, listen, man, I mean, I really appreciated you coming on. I mean, this is it's a rare moment, and it's important to talk things out and also like get a broader experience and just have fucking fun.
Yeah, this was a blast. I mean, listen, I go on about a podcast a week on average is what I shoot for. Sometimes it's more than that. This is the most fun I've had in a podcast as long as I can remember. And I'm not just blowing smoke or saying that. Like, this is just a straight up good time. So thank you for what you do. This is great. Thoroughly enjoy your show listening. And then being on it was like it's kind of like a bucket list experience. So I'm thankful to be here. Thank you.
Well, the way I kind of look at it is like this. Joe Rogan, I'm coming for you.
Straight up.
Coming for you cold.
I'll hold him down. I don't know.
Please do. Well, listen, if you want to find the podcast, we're on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Lost in the Groove Pod. So with that, catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody.